Marcus Webb hadn't slept properly in 18 months. Not since the day Sarah's oncologist used the word terminal in a sentence that started with "I'm so sorry." Now, at 52, with his wife's ashes scattered somewhere in the Atlantic, because she'd loved the ocean, loved the way light danced across water, he spent his mornings in the backyard of their Tudor home in Connecticut, watching contractors excavate what was supposed to be a tomb made of concrete and chlorine. The pool was 3 months from completion. 18 months to the day since Sarah died, he'd signed the contracts. His therapist had called it a grief monument. Marcus called it the only thing keeping him from driving his car into the garage, door closed, engine running. "The water line should be finished by Thursday," Carl, the project foreman, said, squinting against the November sun. He was a broad-shouldered man with the weathered face of someone who'd spent 40 years in construction. "Then we moved to the finishing work, custom tiles, the heating system, the automation." Marcus nodded, not really listening. He was staring at the deep end, a 12-foot drop into nothingness. Sarah had learned to swim as an adult, terrified of water until their honeymoon in Cancun. He'd held her hands, walked her deeper, whispered encouragements into her ear until she finally let go, treading water, laughing with the pure joy of someone discovering they could fly. "Mr. Webb," Carl's voice pulled him back. "The cost overruns. We hit granite at the 17-foot mark. It's going to run you another 40 grand. Marcus waved a hand. Money meant nothing now. He had $32 million. Sarah's life insurance, her investment portfolio, her family trust. She'd left him everything because they'd planned to grow old together, to retire at 65 and spend summers in the Amalfi Coast. Instead, he had enough money to build 100 pools. "Whatever it costs," Marcus said, "I want it perfect." Carl left and Marcus descended the wooden stairs into the excavated earth. The pool was 60 feet long, 30 feet wide, Olympic proportions, though Marcus had never been an athlete. He'd chosen the dimensions because Sarah once mentioned she wished their bathtub was bigger. This was just a larger version of that wish, a bathtub for their memory. He walked the perimeter, his footsteps echoing off the granite walls. The afternoon light was fatting, that particular November gray that made everything look like a photograph from the 1970s. The air smelled like wet concrete and diesel fuel. Around the property line, the surrounding woods were almost naked, just a few stubborn oak leaves clinging to branches like they couldn't accept that autumn was over. At the top of the stairs, Marcus paused. From his elevated position, the empty pool resembled a wound, a raw place where something had been cut out. He'd read somewhere that grief was the price of love, that you couldn't miss someone without having loved them first. The logic made sense, but it didn't help. It just meant that every day without Sarah was a bill coming due on a debt he'd never agreed to pay. His phone vibrated. A text from his brother David. "Mom's having the Thanksgiving thing at her place. She's expecting you. Don't tell her you're not coming. She'll worry." Marcus didn't respond. His mother had always worried about his grades, his career choices, his marriage, his mental health. She'd worry now, too. At 68, Elizabeth Webb had already lost a daughter to a car accident in 1994, and she'd been waiting for tragedy to strike Marcus ever since. Sarah's death had confirmed every terrible thing she'd ever feared. Now she monitored him like he was a prisoner in her mind. The house was cold when he went inside. He'd kept it cold deliberately, turning the thermostat down to 60 degrees, running the AC in summer, keeping the windows open in winter. A living space didn't need warmth if nobody was living in it. He was just occupying it, like a ghost haunting his own home. In the kitchen, he opened a bottle of wine. The third bottle that week, and it was only Tuesday. He poured a glass and stood at the sink, looking out at the excavation. The evening was darkening fast. Soon, the pool would become invisible, just a black void in the backyard. He imagined diving into that darkness, going down and down, never surfacing. His phone rang, unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but some reflex, some ghost of the man he used to be, made him pick up. "Mr. Webb," a woman's voice, nervous. "This is Diana Chen. I'm calling from Parker Elementary School. There's been an incident with your niece." Marcus's hangover clarity sharpened. His brother's daughter, Emma, she was 9. "What kind of incident?" "She got into an argument with another student. It escalated physically. We called her parents first, but they're not answering. You're listed as the emergency contact." "I'm not," Marcus started, but Diana was already continuing. "Can you come pick her up? She's in my office. She's had a rough time today. You might have to talk to her." 40 minutes later, Marcus was sitting in a small office that smelled like hand sanitizer and broken dreams, watching his 9-year-old niece glare at the floor with the fury of someone who'd been betrayed by the world. Emma Webb looked like her father, David's chin, David's stubborn jaw, but she had her mother's dark eyes and the same way of tilting her head when she was thinking about something that hurt. She wore a Parker Elementary hoodie and had a small bandage on her left hand. Her shoe was untied. "Thank you for coming," Diana Chen said. She was young, maybe 30, with the exhausted expression of a teacher who'd been at school since before dawn and wouldn't leave until after dark. There was a physical altercation with Marcus Rivera during lunch. They were having a disagreement about a group project, and words escalated. "I didn't start it," Emma said quietly, eyes still on the floor. "He called me a freak." "He said you were obsessed with dead things," Diana corrected gently. Which isn't okay, obviously, but Emma responded by throwing her tray at him. Marcus looked at his niece. "Your parents know." "They're not picking up," Emma said. "Dad's in meetings, Mom's at her yoga thing." Diana looked uncomfortable. "Your brother did mention they have a busy schedule." Marcus felt something shift in his chest, a cold clarity about his brother's life that he'd been avoiding. David and his wife, Jennifer, were precisely the type of people who scheduled their children around their convenience, not the other way around. They'd probably hired a nanny for most of Emma's childhood, then a tutor when she started struggling in school. They went to Vail every Christmas and sent Emma to a series of summer camps designed to turn kids into competitive automatons. "I'm taking her home," Marcus said. "That's enough, right? She's learning her lesson." Diana hesitated. "We would normally require a parent to come." "I'm her uncle. I'm the emergency contact. I'm taking her." Diana clearly didn't want the responsibility of arguing, so she walked them to the car, a BMW SUV that smelled like leather and the sadness of an expensive vehicle owned by a depressed person. Emma climbed in the passenger seat without being asked, staring out the window as Marcus pulled into traffic. They drove in silence for 12 minutes. Then Emma said, "Are you going to yell at me?" "No," Marcus said. "Should I?" "That's what Dad would do. He'd say I embarrassed him, that I need to think about how my actions affect the people around me." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "Why'd you throw your tray?" "Because Marcus Rivera, said my presentation was boring, that it was stupid to care about migration patterns of monarch butterflies, and when I tried to explain why it was important, he called me a freak." Emma's voice was small now, the anger leaking out, leaving only hurt. "He's been calling me a freak since 3rd grade, like it's just a fact about me." "Monarch butterflies are beautiful," Marcus said. "Knowing about them seems like a superpower to me." Emma looked at him. "Really?" "Yeah, your mom, your dad's sister, used to read these books about insects when she was a kid. Thick books, thousands of species, all this weird Latin nomenclature. Everyone thought she was weird too." He paused. Turned out being smart about things other people didn't care about was exactly what she needed. It helped her become interesting, become herself. He realized he was using past tense. Sarah was past tense now. Everything with her was past tense. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "I heard Grandma tell my dad that you haven't been okay since Aunt Sarah died." Marcus wasn't sure how to respond to that. The truth, that he'd been actively not okay, that he spent nights researching painless methods of suicide, that he was building a pool in his backyard as a backup plan to a primary plan he hadn't quite decided to execute, seemed inappropriate for a 9-year-old. "I've had a hard time," he said, "but I'm working on it." "Do you miss her?" "Every second of every day." Emma nodded like this made sense. "When my goldfish died, I didn't eat for 3 days. Mom said I was being dramatic, but I wasn't. I felt like I couldn't taste anything, like my body forgot how." "That sounds right," Marcus said. "Grief does that." "Will it always feel like that?" Marcus pulled onto David Street, a pristine neighborhood of $4 million homes and obsessively maintained lawns. He parked in the driveway of his brother's colonial mansion, the one with the tennis court and the 3-car garage and the fountain in the foyer. "No," he said, "it changes, it gets smaller. Eventually it fits into the spaces between other things." Emma climbed out of the car, then paused. "Uncle Marcus, do you want me to teach you about monarch butterflies? I have a presentation ready." Something in Marcus's chest cracked, a small fissure in the concrete of his despair. "Yeah," he said, "I'd like that." He watched Emma walk up the driveway, her small shoulders carrying the weight of being misunderstood. At the door, she turned and waved at him. He waved back. Driving home, Marcus thought about monsters, about how grief doesn't make you a monster, but it can make you forget that other people are struggling too. That Emma was drowning in her own way, a kid who cared too much about things that didn't fit into the mold her parents had built for her. He'd been so focused on his own water, his own depths, that he hadn't noticed someone else going under. The pool house was pitch black when he arrived. He turned on the outdoor lights and looked down into the excavation. The granite was gleaming now in the sodium lights, expensive and empty. He thought about Emma's question, will it always feel like that? The honest answer was probably yes, but he'd lied to her anyway, and maybe that was okay. Maybe that was what adults did, they lied about the future to give children a reason to keep going. Marcus went inside and poured another glass of wine. This time he didn't drink it. He just held it, watching the light through the liquid, thinking about monarchs and migration, about creatures that traveled thousands of miles by instinct alone, never knowing why, just following something they couldn't see. He'd been trying so hard to stay still, to build a monument to Sarah's death. Maybe what he needed was to move, to go where the wind was pushing him, even if he didn't understand why. The wine sat untouched in his hand until morning. 3 weeks into December, Emma started coming over to the house every Tuesday and Thursday after school. David had called Marcus that first Tuesday, his voice tight with the particular frustration of a man who'd been inconvenienced. Jennifer's yoga instructor called in sick, so she has to cover a makeup session. I'm back to back until 7. Can you pick up Emma from school? Just this once. Just this once had become a weekly arrangement. Jennifer always had something: yoga, Pilates, lunch with friends, her book club, a spa appointment. David was always in meetings. They'd built their lives in such a way that there was no room for their daughter, so Emma had begun to exist in the cracks of their schedule. Marcus didn't mind. In fact, he'd started looking forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays. The first week, Emma had insisted on showing him her monarch presentation in its entirety. She'd drawn each stage of metamorphosis with meticulous detail: egg, caterpillar, chrysalis, butterfly. She'd explained about the toxins they absorbed from milkweed, about how they used those toxins as a defense mechanism, about the mysterious magnetic sense that guided their migration. She spoke with an intensity that reminded Marcus of Sarah, that same drive to understand the world, to dig deeper, to find meaning in the small things. The butterfly doesn't know why it migrates, Emma had said, pointing to her illustration of a monarch mid-flight. It just knows it has to. It's passed down through generations, a genetic memory. That's beautiful, Marcus had said, and he meant it. He'd spent 18 months in the dark, waiting to understand his own grief, wanting an instruction manual for how to survive. But maybe survival was like migration. You just followed the pull inside you and trusted that it was taking you somewhere worth going. By the second week, they'd moved beyond presentations. Emma had started helping him with the pool project, not the construction itself. She was 9, not a laborer, but the planning. They'd sit in his office with Google Earth pulled up on the desktop, tracing routes that monarch butterflies flew. Emma had suggested that Marcus incorporate monarch imagery into the pool tiles. He dismissed it at first, then realized it was perfect. We could do a migration pattern, Emma had said, excitement making her talk faster. Like, the tile layout follows the actual routes that monarchs take. Nobody would know unless you knew to look, but it would be there. Marcus had called Carl, the foreman, and explained the idea. Carl had looked at him like he was insane, but then Carl had seen the sketches Emma drew, and something shifted. That's actually cool, Carl admitted. Kids got vision. By the third week, Emma had stopped asking her parents if she could come over. She'd simply arrived on Tuesday with her backpack, kissed her mother on the cheek, and climbed into Marcus's car. Jennifer hadn't even looked up from her phone. You know, Emma said now, sitting at the breakfast counter in Marcus's kitchen, eating the pasta he'd made from Sarah's old recipe. My therapist says that grief is just love with nowhere to go. Marcus looked up from his own plate. You see, a therapist. Mom and Dad made me go after I got in trouble at school. Dr. Patterson is nice. She asks me about my feelings a lot, like she wants to actually know, not just ask so I'll stop bothering her. That's good, that's really good, actually. Emma twirled her fork in the pasta. She said that I throw tantrums because I have big feelings and nobody has taught me how to put them anywhere else. That Aunt Sarah probably had big feelings too, right? She did, yeah. Did she have someone to put them with? Marcus set down his fork. This was the question, wasn't it? The architecture of their love had been built on the assumption that they'd have 50 years to work out all the details. They'd had 17. For a long time, I didn't know how much she needed me, Marcus said carefully. I was busy with work with other things. I assumed I had time to figure it out better, and then I didn't. Emma was quiet for a moment. That's sad. Yeah, it is. But at least you were nice to her, right? At least you loved her. I did very much. Then that's something. That's the thing my therapist says. It's not about how much time you have. It's about whether you use the time you have to make things matter. They finished eating in silence. Through the kitchen window, Marcus could see the pool structure, now fully formed, the walls painted with waterproof sealant, the deep end a dark blue that looked almost infinite. Carl had started on the tile work. The monarch migration pattern was taking shape, a spiral that started at the southern edge and wound its way around the pool in a counterclockwise direction, each tile a piece of the butterfly's ancient journey. Can I ask you something? Emma said. Why did you build this pool? Marcus had prepared an answer to this question, a palatable lie about wanting to create a space for family gatherings. But looking at Emma, this small, fierce, brilliant girl who'd somehow broken through his isolation just by being herself, he found he couldn't lie. For your aunt, he said. I built it because she was afraid of water and she learned to swim anyway. Because the last time we swam together, she laughed in a way I'd never heard before, like her whole body was filled with light. I wanted to build something that held that feeling, something perfect and preserved where I could sit with her memory. But the pool's empty, Emma said. Right now it is. When it's full, that's when it matters, though. When it's actually a pool, when it actually has water and light, when somebody could actually swim in it. Emma looked at him with those dark eyes that saw too much. Your aunt wouldn't want it to just be a memorial. She'd want it to be a place where people actually lived. The pool was ready for water on December 20th. Marcus had scheduled it for early morning before the weather turned too cold. Carl and his crew had finished the tilework 3 days earlier. The monarch pattern was extraordinary, subtle enough that casual observers wouldn't notice, but unmistakable if you knew what you were looking for. The spiral started with a single butterfly at the southern edge, then multiplied as it wound around the pool, dozens of monarchs in migration, painted in blues and oranges and blacks against a background of whites and creams. Emma showed up at 6 in the morning with a thermos of hot chocolate and her notebook. I want to document it, she said. The moment the pool becomes alive, I'm going to write it down, and someday I'm going to show this to people, and I'll tell them about my uncle who built a pool for his wife and how it changed everything. Changed everything, Marcus said. Emma, it's just water. No, it's not. You're crying and you don't even know it. Marcus touched his face. She was right, he was crying. The water pump started at 7 a.m. A massive hose fed water from the town connection, and it began to fill, a slow, steady sound that sounded like breathing. Marcus sat on one of the lounge chairs Carl had installed around the perimeter and watched the empty space gradually transform. First, the water level reached 2 feet, and the tile pattern became visible below the surface. The monarchs were dancing now, their colors wavering in the disturbed water. At 5 feet, the deep end started to acquire dimension. The granite walls no longer seemed infinite but graspable. At 8 feet, the pool became a reflection of the sky, clouds moving across its surface like it was holding a piece of heaven. By the time the water reached its final level at noon, Marcus could see himself in it. His reflection was sitting exactly where Sarah had sat during their last trip to the Hamptons, her feet dangling in the water, her laugh echoing across the beach. It's beautiful, Emma whispered. Want to help me test it, Marcus said. Make sure the chlorine balance is right. They changed into swimsuits. Emma borrowed one of Sarah's old ones from the storage closet, an oversight by Jennifer that suddenly seemed like the kindest gift the universe could have offered. They stood at the shallow end, looking down into the water that was now clear and bright and waiting. This is a holy moment, Emma said, with the seriousness of a 9-year-old who'd spent too much time thinking about meaning. We should say something. Marcus thought for a moment. For Sarah, he said. who loved water more than I understood, who laughed like that was the greatest discovery of her life, who made me better just by being herself. Emma took his hand. Together, they descended the shallow steps into the water. It was warm, the heating system was working perfectly and clear as glass. Marcus could see his feet on the pool bottom, could see the monarch tiles circling in their eternal migration. He felt something shift inside him, something too big to ignore. This wasn't a memorial anymore. This was resurrection. Emma was floating on her back, her small body suspended in water that caught the morning sun. "The monarchs," she said, pointing to the tiles below her, "they're swimming with us now." "Yeah, they are. Do you think Aunt Sarah would like it?" Marcus looked at his niece, this girl whose grief had met his grief and somehow made both of them lighter. "I think she'd love it." His phone rang that afternoon. David. "Where's Emma?" His brother's voice was sharp, accusatory. "Jennifer said she went to your house. It's Sunday. She has homework." "She's fine. We built a pool. She helped me dedicate it." A pause. "You let her skip her assignments." "David, she's 9 years old. She spends her afternoons in after-school care with kids who bully her because she thinks about butterflies instead of tick-tock. She spends her evenings watching you and Jennifer pretend she doesn't exist. What I did with her was remember that she matters." The pause stretched longer this time. "She's my daughter." "I know, that's why I'm saying this." When Emma's mother picked her up at 5 p.m., Jennifer looked almost ashamed. Not quite, but close. She stood in the doorway, taking in the pool, the water glinting in the late afternoon light. "That's impressive," she said. "Emma designed the tile pattern," Marcus said. "The whole concept came from her research on monarch butterflies." For a moment, Jennifer looked at her daughter like she was seeing her for the first time. "Emma, I didn't know you were interested in design." "I'm not really," Emma said quietly. "I'm interested in monarchs. Uncle Marcus just listened." Jennifer's expression shifted, something like guilt, something like recognition of all the moments she'd missed by not listening. "We should go. Your father's expecting us for dinner." After they left, Marcus stood at the edge of the pool, watching the water catch the sunset. The monarch tiles glowed beneath the surface, each one a small prayer for safe passage. He thought about what Emma had said, that the pool mattered when it was full, when it held actual life instead of just memory. Maybe that was true about everything. Maybe a life only mattered if you actually lived it, if you filled it with water and light and people you let see you. His phone buzzed, a text from Emma. "Thank you for listening to me. Dr. Patterson says that's what love does, it listens." Marcus cried again, standing alone in the December dark with a pool full of water and the faint echo of his wife's laughter. Christmas came and went. Marcus did go to his mother's house on Thanksgiving, surprising both Elizabeth and David with his presence. He didn't talk much, but he ate 3 pieces of pie, asked his mother about her garden, and mentioned the pool project in a way that made it sound like a normal hobby rather than a suicide prevention installation. His therapist, Dr. Patricia Winters, noticed the change at their session on the 27th. "You seem lighter," she said. She was a woman in her 60s with gray hair and reading glasses on a beaded chain, and she had a remarkable ability to see through bullshit. "I've been spending time with my niece," Marcus said. "She's helping me think about things differently." "Tell me about that." So he did. He talked about Emma's monarchs, about her presentation, about the way she'd shown up to the pool dedication without being asked. He talked about how teaching her about water had somehow taught him how to not be afraid of it. "Do you see what you're doing?" Patricia asked. "You've shifted from being someone who's drowning in grief to being someone who's helping someone else stay afloat. The irony is that it's actually saving you." "Is that okay? Should I be doing work on my own grief instead of using Emma as a distraction?" "Are you using her as a distraction?" Marcus considered this. "No, I think I'm actually present with her. I listen to her. I care about what she thinks." "Then it's not a distraction, it's connection. And humans need connection to survive, especially grieving humans." The new year came, and with it, an unexpected invitation. David called on January 3rd. "Jennifer's decided to take an art history class," David said, and there was something strange in his voice, something hopeful. "She's apparently become very interested in learning about design. She wants to do more activities with Emma. So she's thinking about organizing a birthday party for her at the house, and she wants to theme it around monarchs. She asked if you could help." Marcus was so surprised he almost dropped the phone. Really? Yeah, I think Emma mentioned something about how she feels like nobody pays attention to her interests. And Jennifer got kind of upset about that. So now she wants to make it right. David paused. I'm trying to be better about that too, actually seeing my daughter instead of just fitting her into my schedule. That's great, David. That's really great. Will you help with the party? Absolutely. Emma's 10th birthday party became the talk of the neighborhood. Marcus hired a lepidopterist from Yale to give a 45-minute presentation on monarchs. He worked with a caterer to create a menu inspired by migration, small bites that represented different parts of the butterfly's journey. He and Emma designed invitations that were cut in the shape of butterflies. But the most important part was the pool. On the Saturday of the party, as 25 children ran around the yard in the cold January light, Marcus showed them the monarchy tiles beneath the water. This pool isn't just for swimming, he told them. It's a memorial to migration. Every tile is part of a journey that millions of monarchs make every year. They fly from Canada down to Mexico, thousands of miles, and nobody taught them how. It's just in their bodies, in their genes. They know where to go because they come from a long line of butterflies that knew. One of Emma's friends, a tall girl named Sophie, raised her hand. Is that real? Can butterflies really do that? It's real, Emma said. My uncle's wife was a researcher. She studied insects. And the monarchs are disappearing because we're destroying the places they need to survive. But if we learn about them, if we teach other people about them, then maybe we can help them. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Emma was talking about Sarah like she was present, not like she was gone, but like she was part of the story. Like her work and her knowledge and her curiosity were still alive because Emma was keeping them alive. That night, after all the children left and the caterers cleaned up, Jennifer surprised everyone by serving champagne in the kitchen. To Emma, she said, raising her glass, for teaching us that paying attention to what matters to you is actually a superpower. David raised his glass too, and to Marcus for giving us a reason to understand what that means. Emma hugged Marcus, not letting go for a long time. I love you, she said. I want you to know that. I know you're still sad about Aunt Sarah, but I want you to know that having you in my life is it's like having a piece of her. Something in Marcus's chest crystallized, not healed but transformed. The grief was still there, it would always be there. But it was no longer a wall between him and the world. It was a bridge. It was proof that he'd loved someone enough to never fully get over it, and that was okay. That was actually beautiful. You're the best gift I could have asked for, he said. You know that, right? Better than the pool, Emma teased. Infinitely better than the pool. The pool became a regular gathering place for the Webb family. David and Jennifer started hosting Sunday lunches, and Emma's friends came to study and do homework. Marcus began a project with Emma to document monarch migration, interviewing scientists, collecting data, creating an educational website. But more than that, the pool became a place of healing that extended far beyond one grieving man and his niece. In late February, Elizabeth Webb, Marcus's mother, came to visit. She was 70 now, and grief had made her smaller somehow, like sadness had been slowly shrinking her. She stood at the edge of the pool in the weak winter sunlight, looking down at the tiles. Did Sarah know about this? She asked. No, it was built after she died. It's for her, I guess, but Emma made it into something else, something alive. Elizabeth's eyes filled with tears. I lost my daughter to a car accident 30 years ago, and I've been so afraid of losing you that I almost didn't see you when you were right in front of me. Marcus put his arm around her. You see me now. I'm sorry I couldn't help you when you needed it. You're helping now, that's what matters. At the end of February, Emma came to the house after school with news. Her face was transformed, lit from inside. I got accepted, she said breathlessly, to the Youth Science Symposium, the one I applied to in September. They want me to present a research proposal on monarch conservation, and they gave me a scholarship to attend the full summer program. Marcus picked her up and spun her around, and she screamed with delight. The sound of a child who'd been seen, who'd been validated, who'd been told that the things she cared about actually mattered. Your aunt would be so proud, Marcus said. She did research too. She published papers about insects and ecosystems. She changed how people think about nature. Will you help me with my presentation? Emma asked. every step of the way. As February turned to March, the weather warmed. The pool became inviting again, not just a memorial or a healing instrument, but a joyful place. On the first warm Saturday, Emma organized a pool party. Kids from school came, teenagers, even some neighbors who'd been curious about the strange project that had caused so much construction noise. They swam and laughed and ran on the deck. At sunset, when most of them had left, Emma and Marcus floated on their backs in the water, watching the sky turn purple and gold. "Do you ever think about how your aunt would want this?" Emma said. "The pool, I mean, not as a sad place, but as a happy one." "All the time," Marcus said. "I think she'd love that it's full of life, that it's not just something I made to remember her, it's something I made to live better." "I miss her," Emma said, "and I never even got to meet her." "You did meet her. You're meeting her right now in how she changed me, in how her research is helping you, in how her love is still bouncing around in the world, affecting people." Emma was quiet for a long moment. "That's how people don't really die, isn't it? They live on in the people who loved them." "Yeah," Marcus said. "I think that's exactly right." The water lapped gently against their bodies, holding them up, reflecting the sky. Somewhere in that reflection was Sarah, not suffering, not gone, but transformed into something that lived in the spaces between grief and joy, memory and future. It was the first moment since her death that Marcus didn't feel like he was drowning. It was the first moment he felt like maybe, after all, he was going to be okay. Spring arrived with a suddenness that surprised everyone. One day the trees were bare and the ground was frozen. The next, everything exploded into green. The Connecticut landscape transformed into something lush and alive, and with it came unexpected guests to Marcus's pool. In late April, a phone call came from David. His voice was strange, tight, controlled, like he was holding something back with tremendous effort. "We need to talk," David said, "about Emma and about what you've been doing." Marcus felt a familiar coldness. "What do you mean?" Jennifer was looking through Emma's college prep folder. "She's been working with someone on these research projects, these science symposiums. Then she found emails between you and Emma where you're talking about special time at your house, about secret projects, about how nobody else understands what you do together." The words fell like stones. Marcus couldn't breathe. "David, it's not like that." "It's not like what? You're not spending unsupervised time with our 9-year-old. You're not engaging in projects without our knowledge or consent. I'm her uncle. I'm helping her with her interests. You're filling a hole in our family that wasn't your hole to fill." David's voice rose now, anger breaking through the careful control. "Jennifer and I are her parents. If Emma needed attention, that was for us to handle, not for you to exploit her emotional neediness to justify whatever this is." "I haven't exploited anything. I've listened to her. I've helped her become more confident. By making her feel special, by creating this intimate bond with her, by making her feel like you understand her in ways her own parents don't." David was breathing hard now. "Do you know how that looks, Marcus? Do you understand what that sounds like?" Marcus felt like the ground was opening beneath him. "She was being bullied. You and Jennifer were ignoring her. I stepped in." "You had no right, no legal right, no moral right. She's our daughter, not your therapy project." "She's not. She's coming home, today, and you're not to see her again without our express permission. Jennifer's already talking to a lawyer about whether we need to pursue a restraining order." The call ended. Marcus stood in his kitchen, holding the phone, feeling like he was in the pool except the water was above him, pressing down, making it impossible to breathe. He called back immediately, but David didn't answer. He tried again, no answer. He tried Emma's cell phone, a flip phone David had been reluctant to give her, and it went to voicemail. By evening, the reality had fully crystallized. David and Jennifer believed he was some kind of predator. They believed his love for Emma was suspect, his intentions corrupted. The beautiful thing he'd built with his niece, the bridge between his grief and living, had been transformed into something ugly and manipulative by people who decided there was no other way to interpret it. His phone rang at 9 p.m., unknown number. "Mr. Webb," a woman's voice, careful, official. "This is Patricia Chen. I'm calling with regards to Emma Webb's welfare and your recent interactions with her. Her parents have asked that I evaluate the situation as a licensed family counselor. They're concerned about potential inappropriate contact. I'd like to speak with you." Marcus wanted to hang up. Instead, he listened to her explain that she'd be meeting with Emma, with David and Jennifer, and that she'd like Marcus's perspective. She was careful not to accuse him of anything, but the implication was clear. Something had gone wrong, and Marcus was potentially the cause. He agreed to meet with her the following afternoon. Patricia Chen's office was in New Haven, a beige space with soft lighting and comfortable furniture. She was a woman in her 50s with intelligent eyes and the neutral expression of someone trained not to reveal judgment. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Can you walk me through your relationship with Emma?" Marcus told her everything: how Emma came to him after an incident at school, how they'd talked about grief, how she'd helped him with the pool, how he'd felt like he was helping her become more confident. He told her about the butterfly presentation, the design ideas, the summer program. Patricia took notes. "Do you understand," she said carefully, "why her parents might be concerned about the intensity of your relationship with Emma? She was being neglected. Her parents were ignoring her. They're her parents, and they determine her schedule and supervision. But let me ask you this. Did you discuss these visits with them before they started happening?" "The first time was just a pickup from school." "And subsequent times?" Marcus hesitated. "Emma came over on her own. I assumed they knew." "Did they tell you they knew?" "No, but—" "Did you think you should ask?" Marcus heard what she was saying. He'd wanted Emma to need him. He'd wanted to be the person who understood her. He'd positioned himself as the hero of her story, and in doing that, he'd become someone who could be seen as undermining her parents' authority. "I didn't intend to do anything wrong," Marcus said. "Intention isn't the issue," Patricia said gently. "The issue is whether you maintained appropriate boundaries, and from what I'm hearing, you didn't. You and Emma formed an exclusive bond, a special relationship. You created projects that only the two of you understood. You built her up as someone unique and special in a way that separated her from her family. That's not appropriate, even if it comes from good intentions. She's brilliant. She deserved to be seen." "I don't disagree, but there are right ways and wrong ways to help children. The right way includes their parents, even if those parents aren't doing it perfectly. The wrong way is creating an alternative family structure where the child depends on you for emotional validation." Marcus felt something break inside him. It was the exact thing he'd feared, that he was broken, that his love for people turned into something wrong. That even when he was trying to help, all he did was damage. "What happens now?" he asked. "I'll meet with Emma. I'll speak with her parents again, and based on what I find, I'll make a recommendation. If everything is as you've described, a genuine concern for a niece without ulterior motives, then I'll recommend supervised visits only. Emma will need to understand that her uncle cares about her, but that you overstepped. She'll need her parents to remain her primary support system." "And if you find something else?" Patricia didn't answer immediately. "Let's see what Emma says." 2 days later, Patricia called him back. "I've spoken with Emma," she said. "She confirms your version of events. She says you were kind, that you listened to her, that you helped her feel confident. She also says that she loved spending time with you, that she felt special." "So she was manipulated?" "No, she had positive experiences with you. But she also tells me that when you talked about her parents, you positioned yourself as someone who understood her in ways they didn't. That you made her feel like your relationship with her was different, separate, unique. And a 9-year-old can't process those messages in a healthy way. She needs to believe her parents are her primary relationship, not an uncle who's currently in a fragile emotional state." The words "fragile emotional state" landed like a punch. He was the fragile one, the damaged one, the person who couldn't be trusted to interact with a child without somehow infecting them with his own broken needs. "So no contact?" Marcus asked. "Supervised contact. 1 hour per week with her parents present. The goal is to show Emma that you care about her, but that you understand appropriate boundaries. And more importantly, to help her understand that her parents love her and that the three of you are a unit." Marcus wanted to argue, but he couldn't. She was right. He had overstepped. In his need to be someone's hero, he'd created a dynamic that was potentially harmful to his niece. "I'll do supervised visits," he said. "Whatever you think is best for Emma." The first supervised visit happened on a Saturday afternoon at David and Jennifer's house. Emma was waiting in the living room, and she looked smaller than Marcus remembered, or maybe he was just seeing her differently now, not as an extension of his needs, but as an actual person with her own boundaries and vulnerabilities. "Hi, Uncle Marcus," she said, and her voice was uncertain. She'd been told something, probably something about how he'd made a mistake, how their relationship needed to change. "Hi, sweetheart," Marcus said. "I wanted to talk to you about something." Emma looked at her parents. David nodded for her to listen. "I've been thinking about our time together," Marcus said, "and I realized that I didn't do things the right way. I got so focused on spending time with you that I didn't talk to your parents about it. I made you feel like we had a special relationship that was separate from your family, and that wasn't fair to you." "But we do have a special relationship," Emma said, confused. "You listened to me, you cared about my butterfly research." "I do care about it, and I care about you. But you know what? Your mom and dad care too. They're learning to show it in the ways that matter to you, and I need to respect that they're your primary family." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Are you not my uncle anymore?" "I'll always be your uncle, but we're going to spend our time together differently. Your parents will be with us, and we'll do things as a family, not as a secret team." "It wasn't a secret," Emma whispered. "I know, but it felt like one to you, and that was my mistake." Jennifer put her arm around Emma. "We love you," she said, "and we want to be the people who understand your butterfly interests. That's our job as your parents." But as David drove Marcus out of the house an hour later, after the supervised visit had ended, Marcus could see what he'd lost. He'd wanted to be the hero, and instead, he'd become the person who had to apologize to a child for loving her too much. He'd stepped into a family's dynamics with the best intentions and the worst execution, and now everyone, including Emma, would pay the price. That night, Marcus stood at the edge of the pool and thought about diving into the deep end and not surfacing. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd built this monument to life, and it had become a mouth waiting to swallow him. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. It was a picture, Emma's drawing of the pool, the monarch tiles, and two figures standing at the shallow end holding hands. At the bottom, she'd written in careful print, "When I remember us, this is how I see it, not as wrong, as love." Marcus looked at that drawing for a very long time. He wanted to believe it. He wanted to believe that love could survive scrutiny, that connection could survive separation, that the good thing he'd built with Emma could exist even after it had been broken down into its harmful components. April turned to May, and Marcus's life became a sequence of empty days. The supervised visits with Emma happened every Saturday, but they felt different now, formal, uncomfortable, like visiting someone in a hospital. Emma would talk about school, and Jennifer would interrupt to ask clarifying questions. David would sit nearby, watching Marcus like he was a bomb that might detonate. The pool, which had been a source of joy, became a reminder of all the ways Marcus had failed. He stopped maintaining it. The water turned cloudy. The chlorine filters clogged. The beautiful monarch tiles became obscured beneath a layer of algae that looked like the pool was decomposing. In late May, his therapist Patricia Winters noticed his spiral. "You're catastrophizing," she said. "Yes, you overstepped with Emma. Yes, you created an inappropriate dynamic, but you're not a predator. You made a mistake in judgment and you're correcting it. That's what healthy people do." "But I hurt her." "Did she tell you that you hurt her?" "Her family did." "Her family is processing their own guilt. They weren't paying attention to their daughter, and you filled that gap. That made them uncomfortable because it reflected their own failures. So now they have to paint you as the problem because it's easier than admitting they weren't present enough for her." Marcus heard the logic of what she was saying, but he couldn't feel it. All he felt was the deep, crushing weight of being fundamentally unable to help anyone without somehow harming them. Sarah had needed him, and he'd been too distracted. Emma had needed him, and he'd been too selfish. Even his attempt to be better had somehow made everything worse. In early June, David called with news. "We're moving," he said. "Job opportunity in Boston. Jennifer's been offered a position at a design firm. It's too good to pass up." "When?" "End of summer, before school starts for Emma." "How is Emma with that?" "She's thriving, actually. The move is helping her understand that the world is bigger than the drama we created here. She's excited about a new school, new opportunities." "Can I?" Marcus started, but David cut him off. "We'll do supervised visits until we leave. After that, we'll reassess whether contact is healthy for Emma." What that meant was clear. Once they moved away, Marcus would likely never see his niece again. The brief connection they'd had, the thing that had pulled him from the edge of the abyss, was being carefully and methodically severed by people who believed they were protecting their daughter from him. That night, Marcus took a bottle of sleeping pills from the medicine cabinet. Not all of them. He wasn't decided yet, just enough to understand that the option existed. He sat on the edge of his bed, looking at the pills in his palm. They were small, white, almost innocent-looking. One of them was supposed to help him sleep. All of them together would help him sleep forever. His phone rang. Emma. "Hi, Uncle Marcus," she said, her voice small and unsure. "I'm calling from the school phone because my parents took my cell. I wanted to tell you something." "Hi, baby, what is it?" "I'm giving a presentation next week on monarch conservation, and I wanted you to know that I'm using all the research we did together. I'm giving you credit. I told my teacher. My uncle taught me how to ask real questions." And she said that was really important. She said that's what learning is, when someone teaches you how to think, not just what to think. Marcus was crying so hard he could barely speak. "That's beautiful, Emma. I know things are different now. I know my parents think you made a mistake. But I wanted you to know that what you gave me, that didn't go away. It's inside me. And when I'm older, I'm going to use it to do important things. I'm so proud of you. I want you to know that. Are you proud even if I'm not at your house anymore? Even if we're not doing special things together? Emma, I would be proud of you even if I never saw you again. Your worth isn't about whether you're with me. Your worth is just. It's who you are. It's how you think about the world. It's how you care about things. Then you're not sad about moving. I'm sad about missing you, but I'm not sad about what we had. That was real and it mattered. After they hung up, Marcus put the pills back in the bottle. Not because he'd found a reason to live, exactly, but because Emma deserved to keep living in a world where someone believed in her. That was enough. For now, that had to be enough. The final supervised visit happened on a hot Saturday in late August, just before Emma and her family moved to Boston. They met at the pool. It was the first time Emma had seen it since it had fallen into disrepair, and something shifted in her expression. Disappointment, maybe, or recognition of how quickly beautiful things could crumble. "You stopped taking care of it," she said. "Yeah, I did." "Why?" "Because I didn't know how to take care of anything anymore. Myself, you, the memory, your aunt, I let it all get cloudy." Emma looked at the water, at the monarch tiles barely visible beneath the algae. "That's sad. The pool should be alive." "You're right, it should be." "Uncle Marcus," Emma looked up at him with those dark eyes that saw too much. "When I'm older and I'm a scientist studying monarchs, can I tell people about this pool? About how my uncle built it for his wife who died and how I helped him make it beautiful?" "If you want to." "I want to because that's the real story, not the sad parts. The real story is that you loved someone so much that you built them a monument. And then you loved me so much that you let me help you turn it into something alive. That's not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing." David was watching them from the patio. Jennifer stood next to him, her expression unreadable. "Come help me clean it," Marcus said. "One last time." They spent the afternoon removing the algae, skimming the debris, checking the filters. By evening, the water was clear again. The monarch tiles emerged from beneath the murk, their orange and blue colors bright against the white and cream background. As the sun set, they floated on their backs in the water, Emma and Marcus, surrounded by monarchs in migration. "I'm going to write down everything I learned from you," Emma said. "So when I'm older, I can show people, I can say, this is what being seen looks like. This is what happens when someone listens to you." "That would be nice," Marcus said. "I'd like that. And I want you to know that I forgive you for making mistakes, because you tried. You actually tried, and that matters more than being perfect." Marcus felt something release in his chest. Not healing exactly, but acceptance. He was capable of harm, yes, but he was also capable of love. Both things were true. Both things mattered. On her last morning in Connecticut, Emma came to the house one final time. Not for a supervised visit, but with her parents' permission. She walked through the home, looking at the things that represented her time with Marcus. The books about monarchs, the sketches of the pool design, the photo of her at the dedication ceremony, golden in the afternoon light. "You did a good thing," she said. "Even if it got messy and complicated, you did a good thing, and I'm going to remember that forever." After they left, David loading the final boxes into the moving van. Jennifer and Emma buckled into the car for the 5-hour drive to their new life. Marcus stood in the driveway and waved until the car disappeared around the corner. He walked back to the pool. The water was clear and bright, full of light. He thought about Sarah, about Emma, about all the ways he'd failed to understand what love required. He thought about the monarchs migrating south without knowing why, following something they couldn't see, trusting it anyway. He descended into the water. It was cool and real and holding him up. Marcus stayed until dusk, floating with the monarchs, letting the water teach him what his mind couldn't quite grasp. That survival sometimes meant accepting that some people would have to leave. That love didn't dissolve just because it changed shape. That being broken and trying to fix it was sometimes the bravest thing a person could do. As the sun set, painting the water gold and amber, Marcus made a decision. He would maintain the pool. He would keep it alive, not as a memorial to Sarah or a connection to Emma, but as a practice in staying. As a daily choice to keep living, to keep moving, to trust that the journey was worth taking even without understanding the destination. The monarchs circled beneath him, eternal and beautiful, teaching him how to migrate toward tomorrow. The pool had become something of a local attraction, though Marcus hadn't intended that. What started as a weekend cleaning routine had evolved into a kind of obsession. He'd hired contractors to repair and upgrade the entire system. He'd expanded the garden surrounding it, creating a native plant sanctuary specifically designed to support local pollinators. The monarch tiles had been professionally restored, their colors now vibrant and unmissable. Word spread, neighbors began asking if they could visit. A local news outlet did a short piece on the memorial that had become a living ecosystem. The title they chose made Marcus laugh despite himself. The Pool That Heals, One Man's Journey from Grief to Grace. But the real turning point came in June, when an email arrived from Boston. It was from Emma, now 11 years old, writing from a new email address her parents had helped her set up. She'd won a regional science award for her research on monarch conservation. In her acceptance speech, she talked about her uncle Marcus, not the complicated parts, not the drama with her parents, but the core of what had happened. She'd been seen, and that seeing had changed her life. The judge of the competition had been so moved by her story that she'd contacted Marcus. Her name was Dr. Catherine Reynolds, and she was the director of the Yale Environmental Research Institute. "Your niece is extraordinary," Dr. Reynolds had written, "and her research suggests a level of mentorship that's rare at her age. I'm interested in knowing more about your family's involvement in environmental conservation." Marcus had called her back. Over an hour-long conversation, he'd explained about Sarah, her research, her passion for understanding the small things that held ecosystems together. He'd talked about how Emma had wanted to honor that legacy. He'd been honest about the mistakes he'd made, the boundaries he'd crossed, the correction he'd had to make. "Grief makes people do complicated things," Dr. Reynolds had said. "What matters is whether you're learning from it." "I don't know if I've learned," Marcus said. "I'm just trying to stay alive." "That's learning," she said. "That's the most important kind." 2 weeks later, Dr. Reynolds came to the house. She was a woman in her 60s with sharp intelligence and the kind of presence that suggested she'd spent decades making difficult decisions about what mattered and what didn't. She stood at the edge of the pool for a long time, observing the tile work, the plant garden, the careful ecosystem Marcus had built. "This is remarkable," she said. "Do you know what I see when I look at this?" "A grief monument that got out of hand," Marcus offered. "I see someone trying to translate abstract pain into something tangible and beautiful. That's art. That's also science." She turned to him. "I'd like to propose something. The Institute is launching a new initiative focused on community-based environmental education. We're looking for people who understand that science isn't just about data, it's about connection, meaning, narrative. I think you might be perfect for running the education side of it." Marcus stared at her. "I'm not a scientist. I'm not even sure I'm entirely sane." "Neither was I when I started," Dr. Reynolds said. "But I was willing to learn, and more importantly, I was willing to fail in public. That's all the qualification you need." Over the next month, Marcus found himself building something entirely new. The pool remained, but it became part of a larger story, a physical teaching tool that demonstrated how individual acts of care could scale into collective environmental action. The Institute granted him a small budget to document the ecosystem they'd created. He developed educational materials and started hosting school groups. Emma sent updates throughout the summer. She was thriving in Boston, making friends, winning awards. But she also wrote about missing the pool, missing Connecticut, missing Uncle Marcus. In late July, David called. "Emma wants to come visit for a week," David said. His tone had softened over the past year, some of the defensiveness gone. "We've all been thinking about last summer, and we realized that our response, while protective, might have been a bit harsh. Emma has been talking to her therapist about the complexity of the situation. She wanted to come back and see you and see the pool." "Really?" Marcus said. "You're okay with that?" "We're okay with it. Jennifer wants to apologize, actually. She realizes now that she was defensive about her own parenting failures rather than truly concerned about you. And Emma never believed anything inappropriate happened. She understood that you were grieving and that you sometimes crossed lines without realizing it. Kids are more forgiving than we give them credit for." Emma arrived on August 2nd, taller than Marcus remembered, somehow more herself. She'd cut her hair short, and she was wearing a t-shirt from the Yale Environmental Research Institute. Apparently, Dr. Reynolds had sent her one after reading her award-winning speech. She stood at the edge of the pool and smiled. "It's more beautiful than I remembered," she said. "Did you fix it?" "We fixed it together," Marcus said. "Well, the Institute helped, and a lot of people who care about what this place represents." Over the course of the week, Emma showed Marcus her research, her awards, her plans for a summer program she was starting at her new school focused on monarch conservation. She also showed him her journal, page after page of reflections about their time together, about learning to think critically, about how paying attention to the small things could illuminate the big things. "I'm publishing my research," she told him. "I'm writing a paper about monarch migration patterns, and I'm dedicating it to Aunt Sarah and to you. I'm writing that this project exists because someone cared enough to listen, even when it was complicated." They spent long afternoons in the pool, Emma teaching Marcus about the latest research on climate impacts on migration routes. Marcus telling stories about Sarah. Real stories now, not the sanitized versions, but the complicated human being she'd been. On Emma's last night, they sat on the deck as the sun set, watching the water transform into a mirror of the sky. "I've been thinking about something," Emma said. "About why you built this pool, and I think I finally understand. You weren't trying to hold on to Aunt Sarah. You were trying to prove that love could survive her death, that it could change shape and become something new. And then I came along, and the pool changed again into something neither of us planned." "That's very wise," Marcus said. "Very scientist of you." "That's what love is," Emma said. "It's a process of evolution, it's adaptation, it's migration. You're always moving toward the next place, even when you don't know where you're going." After Emma left, Marcus felt the absence, but it was different than before. It was the absence of presence rather than the absence of hope. Emma would grow and change, and eventually move on to a life that might or might not include him. That was okay. That was exactly as it should be. In September, Marcus attended a symposium at Yale where Emma presented her research. He sat in the back of the auditorium, watching this girl, who had saved his life by insisting that grief could be transformed into something meaningful, explain monarch migration to an auditorium of scientists and students. "My uncle built a pool for his wife," Emma said in her presentation, "and I helped him build it into something alive. I learned from that process that everything we create is a collaboration with the people we love. That beauty isn't a destination, it's a practice. That the best memorials aren't the ones we build in stone, but the ones we build in how we live." After the presentation, people came to introduce themselves to Marcus. Scientists who wanted to partner on research, educators who wanted to adapt his methods in their communities, students who were inspired by what he and Emma had created together. Dr. Reynolds pulled him aside. "I want to officially offer you the position," she said. "Full-time Director of Community Education. We can start in January. You'll have a team, a budget, and the freedom to develop programs however you see fit." "I don't have a degree," Marcus said. "I don't have credentials." "You have something more valuable," Dr. Reynolds said. "You have proof that you've learned how to translate personal meaning into collective action. That's what we need." Marcus started in January. He brought the pool project to scale, working with schools and community groups to create living memorials that honored grief while building environmental consciousness. He worked with Emma on developing curricula. He trained other educators to hold space for the complexity of loss while building connection to nature and to each other. The work was hard and humbling, and exactly what he needed. 2 years after building the pool, Marcus received an invitation to a conference where he would present the work he'd been doing. The conference was being held in Denver, and it was, coincidentally, being hosted at a hotel adjacent to a wetland that had recently been designated a monarch preserve. On the second morning of the conference, Marcus stood at the edge of that preserve, watching monarchs move through the landscape. They'd arrived early this year. Climate change was disrupting their timing, but they were arriving in smaller numbers. The world they migrated through was becoming increasingly hostile. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" A voice behind him. Emma, now 13, had flown to Denver with her parents as a surprise. She was almost as tall as Marcus now, and her eyes had a clarity that suggested she'd learned some hard truths about the world and decided to keep moving anyway. "It is," Marcus said, "though I worry we're not doing enough to help them survive." "That's not your responsibility," Emma said. "Your responsibility is to care, to pay attention, to help other people understand why it matters. The rest has to be collective." "When did you get so wise?" "I had a really good teacher," Emma said. She took his hand. "Someone who showed me that grief could become something meaningful, that pain could become purpose." They stood together, watching the monarchs move through the wetland. Thousands of them, each one following an instinct that had been programmed into their DNA millions of years ago, trusting that the journey was worth taking even though most of them would never complete it. That night, Emma asked him about Sarah. "Do you still miss her?" "Every day," Marcus said. "But it's different now. It's not the weight of absence. It's more like she's woven into everything I do. When I help a student understand their grief, that's Sarah. When I look at the pool, that's Sarah. When I look at you, that's Sarah too, because her love became my capacity to love you." "And Aunt Sarah would be okay with how things turned out, with the mistakes you made with me, with how complicated it all got." Marcus thought about this carefully. "I think Sarah would say that love is always complicated, that the best we can do is show up, pay attention, and be willing to change when we get it wrong. I think she'd be proud that I built a pool and that you helped me turn it into something alive. I think she'd be proud that we learned to love each other through it, even when the path was messy." Emma nodded, processing this. "I'm writing another paper," she said, "about how human relationships shape how we understand nature, how my relationship with you changed how I see monarchs and migration, how personal grief can become scientific understanding." "That sounds important." "It is," Emma said, "because it's the truth. The pool isn't just a memorial, it's a record of how love works, how it transforms, how it multiplies, how it keeps moving forward even when the destination is unknown." Back in Connecticut, the pool remained, clear and bright and alive with visitors. Teenagers came to study its ecosystem. Children learned to swim there, their laughter echoing off the water. Families hosted gatherings at its edge. Scientists came to study how human intention could reshape a landscape into something that served both human emotion and ecological function. And Marcus maintained it every day, testing the chlorine, cleaning the filters, making sure the monarch tiles stayed visible, a reminder of something beyond himself, beyond his individual grief. In quiet moments, he would float on his back in the water and feel the presence of all the people who had shaped it. Sarah, with her love of water and light. Emma, with her insistence that beauty must be alive. Dr. Reynolds and her vision that grief could become science. The hundreds of students and visitors who had found meaning in the simple fact that someone had once cared enough to build it, and then had cared enough to keep it alive. The water held him up, as it had held so many others. And Marcus understood, finally, that this was the real memorial, not the pool itself, but the capacity to keep showing up, to keep loving, to keep tending to the beautiful broken things that made life worth living. The monarch circled beneath him, eternal and migrating, teaching him what his grief had refused to let him learn, that the point of survival was never the destination. It was always the journey itself, the daily choice to keep moving, to keep caring, to let love change shape rather than disappear. And tomorrow, when the sun rose, he would get out of bed. He would test the pool's filters. He would answer emails from students and educators and families. He would live one more day in a life that had nearly ended, transformed by the grace of being seen, of seeing others, of understanding that the only real memorial to love was the choice to keep living for it. The pool would be waiting. The monarchs would be waiting. And Marcus, broken and healing and forever learning, would be waiting too, holding space for all the grief and beauty that could exist in one life, in one place, in one moment of perfect, overwhelming grace. Emma stands at the edge of the Connecticut pool on her 14th birthday. She's taller now, almost her full height, and she's holding a leather journal, the culmination of a year's worth of research and reflection. She's written a book about the pool, not a memoir exactly, but a narrative exploration of how personal grief can become environmental activism. Publishers are interested. Universities want her to speak. But on this morning, on her birthday, she's alone with her Uncle Marcus. "I want to read you something," she says. "It's the conclusion of my manuscript." She opens the journal and reads, "We build memorials to hold what we cannot carry. My Uncle Marcus built a pool to hold his love for his wife. I helped him build it into something that lived. And in doing that, I learned that the best memorials aren't made of stone or water or tile. They're made of attention. They're made of the daily choice to care. They're made of showing up for the people we love with our imperfect hands and our broken hearts and our fierce insistence that meaning can be created from loss." The monarchs in the tiles of this pool migrate every year, following an instinct they'll never understand. And maybe that's what we're doing too, migrating toward meaning, following something we can't quite see, trusting that the journey is worth taking. The pool is here. It's alive. It's beautiful. And it will be here for the people who come after us, who will build their own meanings into it, who will add their own stories to its water. That's how love works. It doesn't end. It transforms, it migrates. It keeps moving forward, always reaching toward the next destination, always choosing to survive. She closes the journal. Marcus is crying. "That's beautiful," he says. "It's true," Emma says. "And I want you to know that I forgive you for everything, for the mistakes you made, for the boundaries you crossed. Because what you gave me, the ability to see myself as worthy of attention, as valuable, as someone whose thoughts matter, that changed my life. That's what I'm going to do with my life. I'm going to help other people see what you taught me to see." Marcus pulls his niece into an embrace. They're standing at the edge of the pool, surrounded by monarchs, surrounded by memory and hope, and the complicated beauty of what happens when people care enough to keep trying, even after they've failed. "Thank you," he says, "for saving me." "You saved me first," Emma says. "We just didn't know it yet." And together they dive into the water, into the deep end, into the dark, into the place where grief becomes love, becomes action, becomes life. The water catches them both. It holds them up. And the monarchs circle endlessly beneath them, migrating, surviving, beautiful in their ancient journey toward tomorrow.